Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Vihari.
Well, Hare Krishna, and I would welcome to our project Books Are the Basis, where we are conducting interviews with Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis regarding inspirations of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. So I'm very happy that today we have as a guest Her Grace Narayani Devi Dasi, and I would like to introduce you, even though I think everyone knows about you. So you came to Krishna Consciousness in 1917 in Boston as a student, music student from the Northwestern University. You have done many services for Srila Prabhupada, including deity worship in Kolkata Temple, traveling book distribution in Western India for the Bombay Temple. You have taught Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, and Bhaktivedanta courses in the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. And you helped to write VTE curriculum for Bhakti Shastri. And you have written a series of 20 books, Srimad Bhagavatam at Glance, which has a picture for every verse of Bhagavata, as well as Bhagavad Gita at Glance, which has a picture for each verse of the Gita. You are also a member of the GBC Shastrik Advisory Committee, and you're also an initiating spiritual leader. So welcome. I'm very happy to have you as our guest. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, I have listened some interviews that you gave. So I think your life is full of wonderful experiences, and it's very much connected to Srila Prabhupada's books. So I think that this topic, books are the basis. I think you can say a lot. But let's start first, if you can say something from the beginning, like how you came to Krishna Consciousness, and what were your first encounters with Srila Prabhupada's books? Were they inspiring? What inspired you? And if you can share with us.
Okay, yes. So I came to Krishna Consciousness. I was searching for a guru, and I was trying different gurus, and then I came to the temple and I asked, what is your process? They said, chant, dance, and eat. So I said, okay, if I chant, dance, and eat, what can I hope to achieve? And they said, you will see God. I said, yes, I want to see God. And my first book was actually a pamphlet, Who is Crazy? Mm-hmm. And we got it on, my husband got it on the street from Jadharani. And it was printed on the pamphlet 50 cents, and she said, oh, you should take this. He said, well, I only have 25, and he showed her, and she grabbed the 25 and gave him the pamphlet. Then he had to walk home because that was his bus fare to get home. But I read the book, and I didn't understand so much. And then I got all the books. They only had a few. It was Bhagavad Gita and the abridged edition and Srimad Bhagavatam. And I started to visit the temple, and I knew how to type. So I was typing some story, the Vita Gorilla, and it was a very far out story for me. This how Balaram is killing this gorilla. And but I just said, oh, it's nice. It's very nice. And I accepted it. And then when I joined, the first day I joined, they said, so you have to type Bhagavad Gita at a glance. We're going to print it. And you have to learn Sanskrit. So they show me the back of the book. And so you have to learn the Sanskrit and type into English, transliterate. So that was my first, I was typing Bhagavad Gita. And then when I went to India, we were sent to India in 1972. I continued typing for Srila Prabhupada books. One was fifth canto, I remember, it was about Lakshmi. And Prabhupada gave a mantra, Om Ram Hrim Haram. And I listened to it because in the purport he said, whoever knows this mantra, he will go to the spiritual world. So I said, okay, I played it 5 times. I learned the mantra from hearing Prabhupada. And when I was in Calcutta, and they needed somebody to type Chaitanya Charitamrita. So they said, okay, you just have to learn Bengali and we're leaving tomorrow. I said, no problem. So then I learned Bengali, how to read. And I was off with Srila Prabhupada the next day. And I was typing in Mayapur Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I had the earphones on and I was listening to Prabhupada speak the Bengali verse. I had this big, huge Bengali book open in front of me. And so I would hear the Bengali, I would type in English letters. And then I typed the whole Navadvip Leela, chapters 13 to 17 of Adi Leela, Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Navadvip when I was in Mayapur. Now, when I was then I got sent back to Calcutta. And I had a problem because I love to read Prabhupada's books, but there were no books in India. So I would see from 1974, devotees were coming for Mayapur festival. And I would look if they had a book under their arm, and I would beg for the book. And they gave me. All the devotees were very kind. I got a full set of Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita in that way. And I could keep reading Prabhupada's books. So one time Prabhupada was in Calcutta giving Bhagavad Gita class, and the men were chanting the Sanskrit. They had the books. The ladies didn't have the book. But when it came ladies' turn, I chanted because I memorized the verse. And Prabhupada was so happy that we learned the verse, that he looked at me with his eyes wide, and he was very happy that I knew the verse of Bhagavad Gita.
Wonderful. So basically, from the beginning, when you came to Krishna Consciousness, you were so much connected with Srila Prabhupada's books.
Yes.
So
actually, for the first 2 months, I was in Ladies' Ashram, and Narayani used to wake us up. Okay, time to wake up. What is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 5? And we'd have to say it.
Yeah.
So we learned the whole Bhagavad Gita in that first 2 months.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing and very inspirational also. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And what would you say, like, at the beginning, what was your favorite, I don't know, chapter, book, purport, verse from Prabhupada's books?
Well, in the beginning, my favorite was like the Bhakti chapters in the middle of Gita, because we didn't have really Bhagavatam but actually when 2 months after I joined, Krishna book came out, and that was my favorite. And I used to keep it under my pillow when I would sleep because it was my favorite book.
Wow. And would you say that, I mean, did you have like natural inclination towards books, or like the whole mood?
Yes.
Was...
Yeah. When I was at the age of 7, I started going to the library, and I would take out 10 books a week. Oh. And every week I would read 10 books. And my goal was to read the whole library. But before that happened, I got Prabhupada's books. So then I left the library. And Prabhupada's books were so much better because I could read them again and again. Like library books, you read them once and then you give them back. But Prabhupada's books, you find something new every time you read.
And how many times did you, I mean, I'm just curious, how many times did you read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita?
Must be at least 30 times by now. I mean, when I was 27 years a devotee, it was 20 times. And now I continue to read Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita every day. So it's probably about 30 times by now. I don't keep track.
Wow.
Gita would be more, because you give classes and like that.
So, I mean, can you say a little bit like, I mean, since you read so much, what impact do the books have on your spiritual life?
Well, you learn lessons from from Prabhupada's books. Bhagavatam and Gita, they are meant to help us develop our appreciation for lessons in life and nature. And so when I study Bhagavatam, Krishna comes in my life and he teaches me lessons from the Bhagavatam. Whatever I studied would happen in my life. Just like when I was studying for teaching Bhakti Vaibhav, I was studying Devahuti and how she got a makeover. She dived into the water and everything. She was like all finished, and then she got a new life. Everything was made beautiful again. She was made beautiful. So while I was studying that, I also went for a retreat, a health retreat, and I had everything. I had a makeover, and my health improved too. Yeah. And one time, I was studying for a Bhakti Vedanta course, Krishna Lila, the Kaliya, two snakes, Kaliya and Agasara, on the same day. So in afternoon, I was taking a nap, and when I woke up, there was a snake, a cobra, across my door. And I this is in Vrindavan, so we had cobra there. And so I shouted, Krishna, Krishna. And then the cobra ran away into the next room, and then somebody caught it and threw him. But we do have a relationship with Krishna. Our process is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. That relationship, we act in to make it real, and then we get our fulfillment of our life, and that is Godhead. So one thing happened to me. I had a near-death experience in 2004. At that time, I was studying Dhruva Maharaj, and it was very interesting because I went under anesthesia, and I was struggling to breathe, and I was actually awake. I was like feeling like a molecule. I lost my identity, and everything was black. And I was just existing in the black, in the darkness. And then I saw the holy name come in front of me. And then I started to chant it, although I didn't have senses. And somehow I started chanting. Then I remembered, oh, I'm Narayani Dasi. So then after I became conscious, it took about 4 hours. Then I was thinking, what was I studying to make me have this near-death experience? And it was true. I was studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Dhruva Maharaj, when he was overcome. He was fighting with the yakshas, and he was overcome by their magic spells. And he lost he was losing his consciousness. So then the sages told him, just chant Hare Krishna, and you will be safe from death. So that's what happened to me. I studied up to the last verse. The last verse was chant Hare Krishna. So I studied up to that point. I didn't get to that point, but then I had the near death and the point came. So I was actually feeling, I knew this had something to do with what I was studying. I didn't finish the chapter. And so I had a near death experience. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, because this definitely shows, you showed in your example of life how Srimad Bhagavatam is very much alive.
Yeah.
And how it impacts. Yeah. So it's quite amazing. In my personal readings of Srimad Bhagavatam, and I only read 2 times, I also had experiences of reciprocation. But this you shared is really amazing, how we can have this. So thank you very much. So that's definitely how people can be inspired, that when they read Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, also they're so much alive that if they absorb themselves, they can have this kind of interaction and realization.
Yeah. You learn your lessons by experiencing it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And then, of course, there's a connection with you. Your connection with the books, in the sense that it helped you to preach Krishna consciousness. So what was the effect? How would you describe it, of Prabhupada's books on your preaching?
Well, what I find is if I read daily, then sometimes I have to give a class, like Bhagavatam class. then whatever I read the day before or the days before, it will somehow come into the lecture that I'm giving in the class the next day or next few days. Like one time I was giving a class on Srimati Radharani, and it was telling that sometimes she gets angry in the class. And then a few days before, I was reading in Chaitanya Charitamrita why she gets angry, because her nature is that she is left-wing gopi. Their nature is to be angry, and right-wing is to be just submissive and not angry. So then I could answer the question why she gets angry in the next class. But I also find that it's not only important to read Prabhupada's books, it's important to chant your rounds attentively, and that will help you understand the books. So I can give you an example how chanting Hare Krishna and reading the books go together. Yes. That I would have to teach Bhagavatam verses. So sometimes I wouldn't understand a verse. It was beyond my mental capability, my intelligence. So then I would read the verse and then I would chant one round of Hare Krishna, and then I would get so much understanding and I could express it. Like one time I had a difficult chapter, Canto 3, Chapter 11, all about time, different times. And so I read the chapter, then I chanted all my 16 rounds. And I had to give a class that day for Bhakti Vaibhava on that chapter. So then after chanting, then I got a whole chart of this time and that time. It just came out naturally. I didn't have to think. I just wrote it down, basically. And so the chanting, like Prabhupada also, he has said that Sankirtan will make you happy and the books will keep you convinced. Mm-hmm. So we need the books to convince us to continue this process. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes we might feel a little disturbed or something happens in our life. And so then what I do is I go to the Gita or Bhagavatam, I open it any place. And then I ask a question, what can I do now? What is my situation? How should I react? And I get the answer. Well, it is the answer.
Thank you. I mean, you are speaking about it now, but I also listened to these other interviews, and I am so fascinated with the interaction that you have. I find it very inspiring, and this faith that yes, this like Krishna will give me the answers through the books, and this attentive chanting will help me. And also I liked how you explained, and you can say something about it, because we have in our database of questions, we have this how the reading of books helps in sharpening intelligence. But you also talk about it, how actually I forgot now how you said it, that actually the super soul is the source, right, of this.
Yeah, super soul is the intelligence. He's a ocean of intelligence. Yeah.
And everything comes from it, and then with the chanting we actually sharpen it, and of course we
access that. If we're attentive to chanting, we can access the reservoir of intelligence. We can connect with super soul. And because sometimes they say women are less intelligent, I say, okay, no problem, I'll just chant, and so then I'll get more. And because spiritual life, there's no obstacle to doesn't matter how much intelligence you have, doesn't matter. You can just chant, and then you have unlimited intelligence. And Krishna is ready to give you, if you need it, if you think you need it, then he's willing to give you as much as you need, or even more than you need. So you can teach, you can give class. Like first 27 years as a devotee, I never gave class. And then at one point I realized, now I have to share what I've been reading so much. I must share what I've read with others. And so, but I was horrified. I said, I was scared to give class. So, but then I just had to do it. I just, followed. I felt like what was Srila Prabhupada's order for me to give class. And I started sharing because that's what we have to do as Prabhupada disciples. We have to share with others what we know. And yes, everybody can do it. Anybody can do it. If you just chant attentively, then Krishna will give you whatever you need. And sometimes I would get whole essays after chanting. I just have to write it down. I didn't think. I just like dictation. Take dictation.
And I wanted to ask you, like, since you said that you read every day, so do you take notes? I mean, now you said that sometimes after chanting you write essays, but do you have something that you do while reading?
Well, personally, in my personal reading, I don't I don't take notes.
Mm.
There is a nice process I can share with you. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah.
It's from Burijan. Oh yeah, this is a nice process I found from Burijan Prabhu.
Mm-hmm.
That would help you, to read very attentively. First, you go to a place where you can be alone, uninterrupted, and quiet. So a sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
And second, you take a humble attitude. And so you can offer prayers before you read. Like you see who you're going to talk with, who you're going to be associating with. Like, Bhagavatam, Shukadeva, sages, Naimisharanya, maybe Kapila Dev, Devahuti. Offer prayers to them and ask them to give you something that will be of relevance to your life. And you read slowly. Don't just try to get a certain amount done. And the purpose is meaningful association, not just to get, okay, I read a whole chapter. Not like that. Just like yesterday, I was in a reading group with Bhagavad Gita, and it was the introduction. And how many times have we read it? But when you read together, like somebody found, Prabhupada says that you must come to the mode of goodness, come to sanity. We never thought about that before. Oh, being in the mode of goodness means you come to sanity. You feel like everybody's crazy, like that first pamphlet I got, who was crazy. Because I think Agamuni's mother complained to Prabhupada that devotees are crazy. And most people thought we were crazy because we were wearing bed sheets and we were chanting and dancing in the streets. So then Prabhupada, in his essay, he said, everybody but the devotees are crazy. So, yeah, sanity. So when you read slowly and words might strike you, or a phrase or idea, so then you should stop and repeat that phrase and then stay with it till you meditate on it. And then you go on reading again and find some more phrases. When you're finished, you can offer your obeisances, and then you have to apply it, of course, apply it to your life. That's the most important thing, is application. And that's why reading slowly will help you, and reading thoughtfully. And that is like when you read, then you can better understand Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission. Like now I've given the service of Guru, so there's opposition. So quotes from Srila Prabhupada are important, like in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says that an acharya, this is Adi Leela's 7th chapter, Lord Chaitanya wanted to invent a way to capture the Mayavadis and others who did not take interest in the Krishna conscious movement. An acharya who comes for service to the Lord cannot be expected to conform to a stereotype, for he must find the ways and means by which Krishna consciousness may be spread. Sometimes jealous persons criticize the Krishna conscious movement because it engages equally both boys and girls in distributing love of Godhead. These rascals should consider one cannot suddenly change a community's social customs. However, since both the boys and girls are being trained to become preachers, those girls are not ordinary girls, but are as good as their brothers who are preaching Krishna consciousness. Therefore, to engage both boys and girls in fully transcendental activities is a policy intended to spread the Krishna conscious movement. So yeah, and a lot of times we hear this, how Lord Chaitanya, he says, whoever you meet, tell him about Krishna. So this is, and this is Bhagavad Gita. What do we tell people? if we meet them. That's Bhagavad Gita. So I was hearing from Mula Prakriti when her remembrance of Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was calling her to his room because he was so interested in her book distribution. And he was saying, "What do you say?" And she was telling him what she was saying. And then he said, "Lord Chaitanya has sent beautiful young women to spread this movement because people are suspicious of the men, but they trust the women more and they'll listen." So, yeah, so the book distribution also is really important, as well as reading the books, sharing the books. I was just yesterday, I was with one at the Sunday feast, and oh, no, she wasn't at the feast. We were online in Bhagavad Gita class. And we were reading Bhagavad Gita, and she's an elderly lady, and she has she's has some problems with her body, and she, walks with a cane. And so, like, we're this Saturday in Alachua, we're having a eco fest, but at the same time, there's book distribution in about 2 hours away, one place, St. Augustine. And she said, "No, it's better if I go. Maybe I can give a book to somebody." And so you become really compassionate when you read Prabhupada's books. It rubs off on you how his mood and mission is to help everyone in this world go back to Godhead and help them advance in spiritual life. So you start thinking like that when you read Prabhupada's book.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I mean, you said so many things which are wonderful. Now, first to start with this, how to read and approach the books and with the prayers, and it's so personal. I mean, but actually you are aware who is speaking in Srimad Bhagavatam and who are the persons with whom you're having actually this association. So I really like that point. Thank you very much. I will remember it for myself also. That's very wonderful. And also, I did have a question about how Prabhupada's books help us to understand his mood and mission. And you actually answered this, which is wonderful. And yeah, so if devotees want to understand Prabhupada, he explained everything in his books, especially this mood and mission. And this example that you gave, your personal example of how you found this mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada is also very nice, because everyone can find it in this segment of their lives. And also compassion. So the books teach us compassion, because that's what Krishna Consciousness here is for. And as you said, like what you read, you share with others. So that's Prabhupada's compassion. So thank you very much for sharing everything. I do have more questions. Just a second. So, yes, I wanted to ask, even though in a way you mentioned it, but maybe if we can go a little bit deeper. So everyone is advised, especially when they go to Bhakti Shastri, like they have this question of how to see the world through the vision of the scriptures, like Shastra Chakshu. So can you share with us some of your experiences, even though you shared a little bit, maybe you can, how this reading helps us to see the world from the Vedic perspective?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, Queen Kunti she prays for more difficulties. Of course, we don't need to pray that way because difficulties come. But her mood is important, that to see how she accepts difficulties coming from Krishna as Krishna's mercy. So then sometimes I would teach that part of Queen Kunti's prayers, and then I would give the homework to the students. Okay, so till tomorrow, you see, how is Krishna's mercy coming to you? How is it coming? Positive and negative. How is the mercy coming? So then, yeah, it helps me a lot, because when my son was 5 years old, then my husband left me. And so that was difficult for me. after being married for 24 years. And so then I was praying, okay, how is this mercy? So then at that time, it was difficult to see. But after looking back on it, I saw, well, because of that, I came to Vrindavan. Mm-hmm. And that was Krishna's mercy. I came with nothing. After 1 year, Krishna gave me a house to stay in, not my house, that I could stay in my whole life, although I came with nothing. And because I kind of made a deal with Krishna. Okay, if you want me to go to Vrindavan, but you have to take care of me. Okay, so then we go. So he showed me. And so, yeah, and I brought all my books with me too, whatever books I had. And, yeah, seeing difficulty as mercy. So I saw, yeah, this was really Krishna's mercy. And if I had been with my husband, I never preached, I never gave class. Then I started, giving classes and traveling the world and now accepting disciples. So if that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have been doing all this. And that's Krishna's mercy. So then you can look back, and one person asked me once, and yes, he asked me, so, you had to leave Bombay Temple because I had my baby when I was around 40. I had my son, and I couldn't do so much service. I was doing 5 hours. And they said, no, you have to do 8 hours or else you have to leave. So then I saw, then afterwards, who was the temple president came to me and said, oh, I'm sorry, you had to leave. I said, no, it was really Krishna's mercy. Now I'm in Vrindavan. and I can teach. And so, yeah, you have to take the mood. You have to understand the mood of these devotees in Bhagavatam, like Kunti, how they are praying, how Prahlad is praying. His prayers also are very wonderful. His prayers to Nrsimhadev. So they teach us how to be grateful to Krishna for his causeless mercy. Gratefulness is very important in spiritual life. That's another lesson we learn from the books, and learn to see everything, how Krishna's mercy is coming to us, to see Krishna's hand behind everything.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. Thank you for that. And you said, you also shared, like, what is maybe you can say something like, what would be an effective way to inspire others to read more Prabhupada's books? Because sometimes people say, oh, I have a lot of service, I don't have time, or I have a job, or for instance, sometimes, people take Bhagavad Gita, especially when they're beginners, and the first chapter is full of these names, which are sometimes bewildering. So they cannot motivate themselves to read. So can you say something, how to inspire?
Yes. Well, when people ask me that question, I say, okay, no problem if you don't have time. You just keep one book open in every room of your house. And when you go by the book, then just look at it. Maybe you can just read a line, because Prabhupada did say, if to Shuddhakirti, if you just read this book, Krishna book, then you will go back to Godhead. And he said, if you just read one chapter, then he said, no, if you just read one page, and he said, if you just read one line, then you will go back to Godhead. So you could just, so I would just make it a habit to keep books open, Prabhupada's books open in different places. And then you can just, glance at them when you're busy.
Yeah.
And and also they can, it's good to be an example of what you want to see, especially if you're a leader. If you're a leader, leaders cannot give this excuse. They must show the example. Like in one lecture on Kunti's prayers, Prabhupada said, to become pious, one generally has to endeavor a great deal. But if one simply hears the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, one becomes pious automatically. Of course, in the West, we don't care about becoming pious, most people. But but it's a fact that you get credits. You get credits. Robin has said you put something into your spiritual bank account when you read, when you chant, when you do these things. You have a spiritual bank account. And so Prabhupada says, therefore, is it a rigid principle on every temple of our Krishna conscious movement? There must be a daily class for hearing and chanting. And then he talks, our movement is meant for training spiritual leaders, but without hearing and chanting, it is impossible to become a leader. Of course, in the material world, it's possible, not in the spiritual world. So each one of us is supposed to be a leader in this movement because there's so many millions and billions of people in the world who have forgotten Krishna. And so we can help them. But without hearing and chanting, unless we read the books, and Prabhupada often stressed that you distribute the books, but did you read the books? Have you read the books? If they ask you, oh, what it's about, you say, well, I don't know, I just sell them. No. And so, no, you need to read the books.
That's true. Thank you for that. And can you tell us also something about, since, that Srila Prabhupada, that he's present in his books. What is your experience, if you can tell a little bit more of his presence? Just because many people nowadays, new generations, they can only meet Srila Prabhupada through his books. So in that sense, if you can.
I see. How he's present in his book.
Yeah. He said that he's always present in his books.
Yes. Well, when you read, I mean, it has been said, Prabhupada has said that these are my spiritual ecstasy. So when you read the books, then you can understand the heart of Srila Prabhupada. You feel it. You can feel it, actually, when you read. How compassionate he is, how he wanted to help everyone in the whole world without discrimination. That he talks to us. He talks to us personally. And if every member was reading the books at 1 hour a day, I would say that, this movement would be much more thoughtful, and they would go about their day in a much more thoughtful way, and we'd have much more mode of goodness behavior also.
So in a way, these books also help us to come to the mode of goodness.
Yeah. And that mode of goodness behavior is very important for people to engage in Krishna consciousness. Makes it much easier. Like mode of ignorance if you're just sleeping all the time, or mode of passion if you're just busy, working hard, then it will be very difficult for you to practice. It'll be hard for you to practice your Krishna consciousness. And if Prabhupada gives you those words of encouragement, you say, oh yes, even I can do this. If you read his books and you associate with him very deeply, then you can. And the most important thing, though, is to apply it. It's like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one of the first instructions he says to Arjuna is to tolerate. He says, you're talking great philosophy, but you don't, but you're lamenting. So if you're lamenting, that means there's a problem here. You've got an emotional problem. Yes, there will be difficulties you have to expect. It's like summer and winter. It's going to come in your life. Summer comes, winter comes. Happiness comes, distress comes. But what to do about it? Tolerate. So you can practice during one day. I'm sure there's enough to tolerate in one day of your life, or you can practice for 1 week. You just take a verse and practice it for a day or a week or a month. And this is my verse for the day or for the week or for the month. And I'm going to practice tolerating and see how it goes,
Well, thank you for answering. I mean, for telling this, because I just find it very interesting. I look at my question. I'm like, oh, but you also answered this one. You also answered that one. I didn't even ask you. So I find it very nice.
Uh-oh.
It's great. No, it's great. I just find it fascinating because I wanted to ask you about the application and now you said it. So it's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to also ask you about your experience in writing, because you also wrote the Bhagavad Gita at glance and Srimad Bhagavatam at glance. So what inspired you to write those books, and why does every verse have a picture? I want to tell you.
Oh, well, the reason why every verse has a picture is Prabhupada, when he was here, he instructed the artists that they must make a picture for every verse of Bhagavad Gita. It was his instruction. Okay. So one artist, who's my friend, came to me and said, so would you like to do this project of making a picture for every verse of Bhagavad Gita? And so I said yes. And so we discussed every single verse and what picture should be there. And I would write the poetry to go with it. So that was the first inspiration. Then Bhagavatam was a whole nother thing, because then I started teaching Bhagavatam in 2002. And so Burijan told me, you have to know what's in every chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I said, how am I going to know that? So then I thought, okay, must be Krishna is in the form of, it says in Bhagavatam that Krishna is the sound incarnation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So how does the Bhagavatam relate to Krishna, to his form? So how does the Bhagavatam relate to his form? So then of course, then I chanted japa. And when I was traveling, my first trips to the West, and I think it was 1998, I was chanting, I was asking the question, what is the form of Bhagavatam? So then I had the vision of how the cantos of Bhagavatam are different parts of Krishna's body. Mm-hmm. And there's a verse in Padma Purana that says that. So, because I had read that verse, and then I remembered, I said, oh, yes. So first and second canto are his feet, and third, fourth are his legs, and fifth is his waist, and then it goes all the way up, 10th canto, smiling face. So then we made that picture. And then I thought, well, I could make picture. So I've got now, then I started writing, I made a picture. I started the first whole Bhagavatam, 12 cantos. So I made a picture for every canto and how there's sections of every canto. Like first canto is about the sages from Naimisharanya, first part, Narada and Vyas. And then it goes to Krishna with Kunti and the residents of Hastinapur. Then Krishna goes to Dwarka, and then it's Parikshit. So then I made those 4 sections, and then each chapter I had a picture. Each chapter of the first canto. So then I made a big poster of that. You could see the whole first canto at a glance. And then we had one book is like that, every canto, picture of each canto at a glance. And I thought, okay, let me do also pictures for each verse. So then we started doing pictures for each verse. So then we have those books also now, picture for each verse, with also poetry to go with it. So yeah, I was inspired first by the Prabhupada's instruction. So we fulfilled Prabhupada's instruction to have a picture for every verse of Bhagavad Gita. And then I just expanded it to Bhagavatam. And when Burijan told me, when I started teaching, we were teaching together, Burijan and I, we were sharing the teaching. And he said, you should know what's in every chapter. So then, in every canto. So then I thought, okay, let's do this again. in pictures. So yeah, and we did that in pictures, and we're doing that. And every single verse we discussed, because sometimes the artist wouldn't come up with her own ideas. Well, she would come up with hers, and then I would say yes, no, or else I would change it. I would like, okay, no, it's not like that. Like one example was when she wanted to make a picture of Vishnu, and Maya is offering him some clothes, and I said, no, Vishnu does not come in contact with Maya. Shiva. See that we can't do that picture. No, it can't be like that. It's so different things like that. When she didn't know how Bhagavad Gita, I think 6th chapter, verse 43, how it says a devotee who doesn't make it in this life takes birth in a good family in the next life, and he's naturally attracted. She said, how can you show a picture how is he naturally attracted in the next life? I said, oh, that's easy. You have a Harinam party, and then you have a small kid going to the party, and the parents are looking at the kid. What's the kid doing? But sometimes the small child will be attracted to the Harinam, but they'll grab the book and they won't let go of the book. They don't want a book, So yeah, and we had one in 9th chapter, verse 32, how the devotee leaves Krishna consciousness and starts breaking all the rules and regulations, but Krishna's behind him, pulling his Sika back and bringing him back to Krishna consciousness. So it's like, yeah, it's when you see the picture, it helps to stay in your brain. Some people are more visual, and it's easier for them. Like dyslexic people tell me they appreciate the pictures a lot because it's not so easy for them to see the words. Sometimes the words start moving and stuff like that. So then we have the pictures and we have the words together. And I feel like the pictures can last for generations. The language may change, but the pictures can stay. So I think they're an important part of Prabhupada's books. And he emphasized there were so many pictures for the first Krishna books. I mean, tons of, in Bhagavad Gita also, Srimad Bhagavatam, now they've reduced the number of pictures, but I think it's really important to help you understand the verses.
Yeah. We had an interview with Annapurna Devi Dasi.
Oh, yeah.
So I touched upon a little bit about reading and then creating art for Krishna according to what Srila Prabhupada said, and it's very wonderful that you did that. And just a week ago, I went with my friends and my husband to Golokadam, and Hari Parshad Prabhu, he was giving lectures of Shikarinis of Rupa Goswami, and he was reading verses from Padyaval, and anyway, and every verse he was just saying that how the artists are very lucky in this movement because every verse gave a picture, and it's meditation on Krishna. So it's really magical how the scriptures, they give you so many opportunities to contemplate on Krishna. And he wrote poetry, so he was also talking about poetry and how we should be all poets and also express our emotions and everything, that's like contemplations and introspections on Krishna through the words or through the pictures. So I just want to say I'll definitely have a look at the Srimad Bhagavatam at a glance and Bhagavad Gita. I'm very interested now. Yeah,
they are actually available in Vrindavan online Divya Books.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
And the full book is on Amazon. The full book.
Okay.
On an ebook.
Okay.
The full book.
Great. I will have a look. Just to see, I had a few more questions.
Okay.
And maybe the last question that I would have, like if you can, oh, actually, I wanted to ask you two questions. The first one is you talked about your experiences and everything, but I just wanted to ask you, in your life experience, how did you see Srila Prabhupada's books affect other people and their spiritual life?
Mm.
Yeah, like their effect on life, because that also shows that.
Srila Prabhupada's books on other people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would give classes on reading Prabhupada's books.
Mm-hmm.
Often I would ask the question that how many of you came to Krishna Consciousness because of getting a book? And usually when I asked that question, majority of the students would raise their hand and said, yes, I came because of getting a book. And so, yeah, that is the thing. Of course, there are many, many stories. I mean, I have heard one story a couple of years ago about one. This was in Eastern Europe. There was one book distributor sold Bhagavad Gita to one man, and he took it home, and his roommate was a drunkard. And the drunkard picked up the book, and he read one line: "For the soul, there is neither birth nor death." And he threw it. Rubbish, rubbish. Then he had a near-death experience. He drank a little too much. And the Yamadutas came and took him to Yamaraj. Yamaraj said, so you are very sinful. You must suffer. What are you going to do now? And so the drunkard, somehow he remembered that one line, for the soul, there is neither birth nor death. And he said, Ramesh said, go back. And so he went back. He read the whole Gita. He joined. This is a true story. And he became a brahmachari. So that's a very fantastic, there are many stories like that, very fantastic stories about reading Prabhupada's books. Just one line. As Prabhupada said, one line can save you. So that's why some of the book distributors, they make the people read one line, even if they don't take the book. They have them read, okay, here, just read one line. And yeah, I know one devotee, book distributor also, one devotee in my class was telling his story, how the book saved his life, reading the book. And he said he was out on book distribution, and he was in a Santa costume. You know, they used to wear Santa Claus costumes.
Yeah.
And so one man came up with a gun and challenged him, how can you call yourself Santa? And so he picked up the Bhagavad Gita. He opened it to the 3rd chapter, verse 13. It says, the Santas are realized souls who are helping to spread God consciousness, something like that in the book. Yeah. And then so the man said, okay. He didn't shoot him.
Wow.
So because Santa is a Sanskrit word, actually, for saint or saint, for sage. Yeah, so yeah, I see that. I think my ex-husband, because I joined 2 months ahead of him, and then he was reading the books, and then he joined also because of the books. They had, because he was a very philosophical person. He is a very philosophical person. Mm. And so that influenced him. I was more like emotional, like into the Harinam, and like with the day I joined, it was I had stayed the weekend, and Vishnujan Maharaj came, and so Prabhupada said he was coming, so I stayed, but he didn't come. Instead, he sent 4 sannyasis, one which Vishnujan went out the whole weekend, and then yeah, I said, why should I go back home? I went to say goodbye to my husband and joined. But yeah, but the books definitely, I had read all the books there were in the 3 months before I joined. It was Nectar of Devotion and Bhagavatam and First Canto and Bhagavad Gita, abridged Bhagavad Gita. So yeah, sometimes you feel like quitting, and the books will help you to stay. Books help you to stay.
Yeah.
They really give you encouragement when you need it.
Thank you for sharing that. And my last question would be more like a message for future generations, whether it's, I don't know, second, third, fourth generation of devotees, or like people who will come in the movement. If you have some message regarding the importance of reading that we can conclude.
Okay, for the second generation. It's very difficult for the second generation to chant and read, I find. Some of them, they like kirtan very much. But somehow they can't really practice everything. But I feel that if you were to actually read the books, it will be easier for you to like take up the japa chanting, to practice rules and regulations, and to follow the principles, to follow Srila Prabhupada. And I feel like if you were to read the books, you could appreciate what Prabhupada did, and be grateful for the opportunity to be part of Prabhupada's inheritance, Prabhupada's family. Because how to encourage them, that everyone has their choice. So that's very difficult. But there are, and especially now because everything's online. It's
short videos, 2 minutes, and that's it.
The books are kind of old-fashioned in a sense, but it's very nice. One way to encourage is I know one family, what they did, family of 7 with 7 children. So every night they would read Krishna book all together. Each one had to read, no matter how old they were. And all of those 7 children came out, initiated devotees of Srila Prabhupada, and they were reading together as a family every night. Mm-hmm. So families can try that when they're young. When they're older, it's more difficult to convince them to read. But I think one thing that we can do, it's very hard to change others. Yeah. But one thing we can do to encourage the second generation is to show how happy we are and how the books help us to solve the problems in our lives. We have to be a shining example of what we want them to be. When you're young, you can do something, and when they get older as adults, then you can just really chant, be happy, read, and be happy, and show them how it's nourishing for you. Yeah. Very nourishing.
Thank you. And I just have one question, like that I'm interested in. Like, what about so we talked about Prabhupada's books, but you also read like the Goswami's books and everything else that comes. But yeah. So I mean, everything should be relished, because in a way it's also what Prabhupada wanted.
I would say read Prabhupada's books at least 3 times before you read other books, because then you get the idea of what the Siddhanta is, what is actually our mood and our mission. Mm-hmm. Because when you read other books, you don't get that. Mm-hmm. You don't get the mission of Prabhupada. You don't get the compassion. You might find esoteric, this and that, mm-hmm. but you don't get the outreach. You don't get the relationship that you have with other people. You might be in your own world of Radha and Krishna and all that, but how does that help others to advance in spiritual life? So yeah, I read Prabhupada's books 20 times before I started to read the others. Yeah. The others, and I did read them to help me in teaching, mm-hmm. Not Bhakti Shastri, but the Bhaktivedanta course, especially 10th canto. Yeah. You need to know what is out there. You need to know. But I found more than the Goswamis, I found that the books of my godbrothers, like Shivam Swami, he did the study, let him do the study, and then I just take the results and use them. Yeah. And Govinda Maharaj too. Yeah. Like he also digested it, Radha Krishna Leela. of course, I found Prabhupada's books also, like to teach the 10th canto. I found the Krishna book was very, very important because sometimes it is a little different from the translations that we find of 10th canto. So I was very close with Krishna book, and for 10th canto, very close with Chaitanya Charitamrita, because to understand Krishna Lila, you have to get it through Lord Chaitanya. Yeah. So Lord Chaitanya digested all those verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, and he explained them in his ecstasies in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So in order to understand Krishna, you have to go through Lord Chaitanya. I mean, Krishna book is okay. You can read Krishna book and that's fine. But then if you want to go deeper, then you have to go to Chaitanya Charitamrita. You don't have to go to other books. You can just go to Chaitanya Charitamrita and you can find all the esoteric teachings. And then from our godbrothers who have gone through all the Acharya's commentaries, you can also learn a lot. That I would go there first, then instead of just reading them like that as they stand by yourself, you may get a wrong interpretation, a wrong idea. As Prabhupada has digested them, and he's given us Krishna book, so that would be first. And then, of course, read the whole 9 cantos before you get to the 10th canto. And then Chaitanya Charitamrita is also will help you.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was my final question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for everything. For me, it was very inspiring. I hope it will be for everyone else.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama